Was brought to Tucker Prison for our interview, away from Jack Walls, who's now in jail at Cummins for sexually abusing young boys. Stocks first came to know Walls when he advanced from a Cub Scout to the Boy Scouts, where Walls positioned himself as a central figure in the lives of several of the boys.
He wanted to be there for you like a dad. He wanted to, I mean, it went so far as my life went on, it went from what I wore to what I did on dates, sexual contact I had with other people, everything about my life.
Stock says at about age 11, Walls began sexually abusing some of the boys, himself included, on outings, at Walls' home, even at their own homes, but they dared not say anything.
Most of the boys actually thought that if they ever said something, they'd be burned to death in their sleep and nobody'd ever find out. I think he told a lot of the kids that, and most of them believed it. Most of them thought that if they did say anything, he would have them killed.
So the secret remained in the group until one boy Walls attempted to molest resisted him and told his father what had happened. Charges were filed and Walls was banned from the Scouts. Stock says Walls wanted them eliminated.
Well, he was mad. What made him mad is because they kicked him out of the Scouts because of that. And that's why he wanted to kill him right there. That's one of the reasons, because he couldn't be with us. He'd have to sneak around, do things. And that really hurt him. So, us boys loving him like we did, him being like a father to us, we did what he told us to do.
An assassination plan was made but never carried out when Walls was found innocent of the charges. But Stock says Walls continued to train him to carry out his dirty work.
For me, it was more training towards being the hit man that he wanted me to be for anybody that ever turned against him or tried to hurt him. We loved him.
At the time, Stocks had no idea that training would be put to use on his own family. Tomorrow night, we'll hear from Stocks just what led up to their deaths. Charles Davis for KKYK News. There were warning signs that led up to the deaths of Joe, Barbara, and Heather Stocks. One of the first to notice a change in Heath was his grandmother, Dorothy. She says Heath was a regular at church who gave time and attention to the younger boys in the congregation, something that did not go unnoticed by other church members.
And several of them remarked, well, he's a role model for the young boys. That's when he was coming to church, and they were sitting by him. And everybody cared about him. And then it stopped.
It got to the point where I couldn't touch the kids. I couldn't play with the kids because my own self-conscious about what was happening to me. I questioned whether I was touching them in a sexual way. I knew inside that I wasn't. I was just playing with the kids. But the emptiness inside of me, because of what was happening, it made me question. So it hurt so much, I just got to where I cut that out, and I cut out church.
There were other signs as well. Communication between Heath and his parents broke down. Jack Walls became the go-between.
It got so bad that my parents couldn't even talk to me. I mean, they would go to Jack to find out what I was thinking. So it was my parents to go to Jack. Jack would tell me one thing and then tell them another. So it was, he was pitting me and my parents against each other. So I would get closer to him. I feel like they were trying to push me even farther away, yet he was the one doing it, really. And he did a lot of boys like that.
Heather Stocks was student president of youth suicide prevention in Arkansas, and her brother became her biggest project.
She caught me playing Russian roulette. And, that's the reason why she joined. She said, you know, after 10 years of talking to her big brother and trying to help him, I was just too sick. I couldn't be helped. So she'd try to help somebody else. So, you know, that was kind of hard. But now I realize what real love was. And it wasn't wasn't what he was giving us.
When Barbara Stocks caught Jack and Heath lying asleep in bed together, she confronted her son. Heath told her what had been going on, and then told Jack what he had done. That presented a big problem.
Jack's thing was, if you have a problem, you kill it. You don't try to work it out. Takes too much of your time, too much of your worry. Just kill it. Get it over with.
Heath didn't want to talk about that January day last year when the murders occurred, and says there's still a part of him that can't let go of Jack Walls. But he says there is something he feels sure of.
I lost the 3 people who loved me the most, just because of this man.
Charles Davis for the News at 9.
TV Channel 7, the spirit of Arkansas. This is Channel 7 News at 6.
A former Lonoke County Boy Scout who killed his family is holding out hope for freedom. Good evening to you. I'm Chris May.
And I'm Karen Fuller. When Heath Stocks pleaded guilty to the 3 counts of capital murder last year, he said nothing about the long-term abuse he suffered at the hands of Jack Walls III. Walls, as you know, recently pleaded guilty to raping several young boys who were in his scout troop years ago. Channel 7's Jason Peterson traveled to Tucker Maximum Security Prison today to hear Heath Stocks' side of the story.
If I had never met Jack Walls, what would my life be like today?
Like countless other young Arkansas boys, Heath Stocks joined the Boy Scouts. Unlike countless others, Stocks was raped by a scout leader. Jack Walls admitted raping young scouts in his care. He's now serving 4 life terms in prison. Heath Stocks was one of Walls' victims. He is serving 3 life terms for murdering his family. Stocks says that after a decade of abuse, he was ready to end it all last year.
I was sitting in the living room with a gun stuck in my mouth. I was fixing to blow my brains out. I was fixing to commit suicide.
Instead, Stocks turned the gun on his father, mother, and sister. All 3 were shot 3 times. All were shot in the head. Stocks says he remembers nothing.
I just snapped, broke, blacked out. When I came to, they were gone.
Stocks' memory was a little better the day after the murders. He confessed to police that, "I shot my dad first, and I just kept on shooting until Mom, Dad, and Heather were all on the floor. I remember shooting my dad in the head after he was on the floor, but I don't remember shooting the others after they were down." Evidence like this makes a second look at Stocks' case and his sentence doubtful.
And at this time, I still find no evidence to bring the investigation back up.
Despite the odds, Stocks still hopes to go home one day, marry his fiancée, and start a family.
Where are you getting your hope?
Where everybody else gets their hope. God.
As far as what role Jack Walls may have played in Heath Stocks murdering his family, Stocks says Walls told him to deal with the problem. He also says Walls taught him that when you have a problem, kill it. But as far as a direct order from Walls instructing Stocks to kill his family, there was none.
Insightful. Jason, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. It's great to have you with us on News 410. I'm Kent Bates.
I'm Denise Whitaker. In our lead story tonight, a Lonoke County man serving life without parole for murdering his family does get a clemency hearing. Earlier today, the Post-Prison Transfer Board released its vote on Heath Stocks' request for a hearing. Members voted last week 6-1 against granting the hearing. Those 6 members said Stocks served an insufficient amount of time to deserve a hearing. Late this afternoon, though, those board members reversed their decisions based on the reason given by the 1 dissenting member last week. The hearing's now set for May 2000. The board's reversed decision caused some in Lonoke to express elation while others expressed their fear. Paula Hennessy joins us with reaction. Paula?
Well, Denise, Heath Stocks claims he was brainwashed and trained to kill by his Boy Scout troop leader. That leader is convicted pedophile Jack Walls III. Now, Stocks wants a second chance, but does a man who killed his family deserve that chance? That depends on who you ask. Cletus Hogan says Heath Stocks tried to kill him and his son. But Hogan says now that he understands Heath's years of sexual abuse, he forgives him and visits Stocks often in prison. He also wrote to the Post-Prison Transfer Board in support of a clemency hearing.
I'd like to see Heath get a sentence that would allow him to be sent to a mental institution where he can get good help so that he will have a chance to get back in society.
Stocks is serving 3 life terms without parole for shooting his father Joe, mother Barbara, and sister Heather to death. He's getting a clemency hearing after serving less than 2 years. Most inmates serving life aren't even eligible for a clemency hearing for 7 years. But board members say they made this exception for an exceptional case.
You know, at that time, he and his attorney, family members can appear and state their reasoning for consideration of executive clemency.
But it's a chance this woman says Heath doesn't deserve. She knew the Stocks family and she knew Heath. She's so fearful of him, she didn't want to be identified.
If a person can take the life of their own family members, then they are a threat to society.
What's more, this woman's not convinced Jack Wall's spell caused him to kill.
He had a temper that would change within a flash.
Now, this doesn't mean Stocks will get a commuted sentence. It just means he's been granted a hearing before the board, which then forwards its recommendation to the governor. Denise?
Paula, how likely is it for a prisoner to receive executive clemency?
Well, Denise, we asked that question, and I'm told a very rare number of people are granted clemency. In fact, it's estimated fewer than 5% of prisoners seeking executive clemency actually get it. And if Stocks is denied clemency, he'll have to wait another 4 years before reapplying. Denise?
Paula, thank you.
Killed his mother, father, and sister. He now refers to their deaths as accidents.
I never wanted that. Never wanted any of them to get hurt. I was doing what I was told to do.
Heath Stocks claims this man told him and trained him to kill. Jack Walls III, Stocks Boy Scout troop leader who pled guilty last year to molesting boys. Stocks was one of the John Doe plaintiffs in that case.
Because Jack Walls had everybody fooled.
Do you think Jack Walls is responsible for the death of Heath?
I most certainly do. There's no doubt in my mind.
The 10 years of sexual abuse Heath endured never came out. That's because Stocks never had a trial. He says he can't remember pulling the trigger that night, and he can't forget what he did is irreversible.
If I don't go to heaven, then I go to hell. I've already seen it.
Stocks' attorney says disclosure of the years of abuse would have meant a lesser sentence. Stocks admits he needs help. Both he and his family members are asking he be placed in a mental institution if he is released from prison. Kent?
Paula, thank you.
A 22-year-old Lone Oak man serving 3 consecutive life sentences for killing his family wants another chance. Paula Hennessy has more on the story of Heath Stocks. Paula?
Steve, Heath Stocks says he can't remember pulling the trigger and can't forget the years of sexual abuse.
I can remember the gun, but it started out as a suicide.
But a suicide would turn into a triple homicide. January 17th, 1997, investigators found Joe, Barbara, and Heather Stocks dead in their home, murdered by their son and their brother, a football star, a college student, a decorated Boy Scout. But it is in this brotherhood, Stocks says, the real Heath died. For 10 years, Stocks says he was sexually molested by his Boy Scout troop leader, Jack Walls III.
It came out later on that my mother had found us in our house together.
What were you doing?
Apparently, I was being raped.
Last year, Walls pled guilty to sexually abusing boys in Lone Oak County.
I wasn't the only one that's supposed to do that. Anybody and everybody that found out was supposed to die.
Stocks' grandmother says Walls, a Vietnam veteran, trained her grandson to kill.
I'm going to do all I can for Heath because Joe, Barbara, and Heather would want that.
And all Heath Stocks wants is a second chance.
It was a mistake. It was a horrible mistake. If anything should have happened, my life should have been taken that night. No one else's. I don't think being in prison for the rest of my life is going to help matters.
The family's asking Stocks be removed from prison and placed in a mental institution. Attorney Cheryl Maples plans to file the motion for clemency early next week. Steve?
Walls was accused of soliciting sex. The Department of Human Services was called in, but closed its investigation in 1993. In 1997, one of Wall's former scouts, Heath Stocks, murdered his family and was sentenced to 3 life prison terms. That same year, after additional allegations, Walls was convicted of several counts of rape. During the Walls sentencing, Stocks testified that Walls had raped him and encouraged him to murder his parents. Now, News 4's Jack Vinson has obtained a DHS report involving its original investigation of Walls. Jack?
Steve, today we talked with the family who filed that original complaint back in December of 1992. They say the Stocks murders may have been prevented if the investigation then was handled properly.
I think there was a good chance that Stocks family would still be alive. Jack would have been behind bars, and he wouldn't have been out where he could encourage anything of this type to happen.
Cletus Hogan filed a complaint in December 1992 accusing Jack Walls III of making sexual advances toward his then 16-year-old son. But DHS did not act on the investigation until 142 days later. The case was ultimately closed after allegations were deemed unfounded. At the urging of Hogan, DHS opened an internal investigation on how that case was handled.
No one here is really disputing anything that is in that report, that on a lot of levels, this case could have been handled better.
According to the report, the 1992 allegations against Jack Walls were not investigated in a timely manner, and evidence that some of the allegations were true. Now, the caseworker's future is in question over a case that took place 6 years ago.
I don't think he should be working and have any determination whatsoever with children. I don't think he should be working for the Department of Human Services in any way.
Now, DHS is looking into why the caseworker took so long to begin his investigation. According to law, they are supposed to start their probe within 72 hours. The result was that Walls continued violating people, one of whom was Heath Stocks. Steve?
All right, Jack, thank you.
Former prosecutor Betty Dickey said this new information changes things. In a statement to News 4, Dickey said some independent authority needs to review the file in light of the fact that Jack Walls was involved in the murders.